Our next guest was the lead singer for the classic rock and roll band Jefferson Airplane. She's also written a book entitled Somebody to Love, a rock and roll memoir. Will you please welcome the original rock and roll diva, Grace Slick. Nice to have you here. What a legend, a rock and roll diva. Do you like that title, rock and roll diva?
It's so silly that I have a bunch of friends where I live here in LA, and we get together. We're the divas and goddesses. And we're all of a certain age, so it's, you know, it's your basic joke.
I see. Well, you...
Now, why would you want to put LSD into the president's tea?
To get him really different.
Well,
we weren't too fond of the way he was, so we wanted him different, any kind of different.
What now? How did you do it?
It was President Nixon. We got to say that it was President Nixon. It's in your book, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Clinton. He's got enough. You know.
Oh yeah. Well, yes. There's other stuff in his tea. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So what did you do? You just snuck into there, or?
Well, we were invited, or I was invited, because I went to what is called a finishing school. And they don't have those anymore. That teaches you to how to pour tea, where the forks go, and how to get a Princeton man, basically, is what the deal is.
It was, what, Finch?
Finch College, and Tricia Nixon had gone there.
Right.
So she sent out invitations to all the Finch and alumni. She didn't know who I was. She went there 10 years later. So it's Grace Wing, which is my name when I was a kid going to college. They didn't know who they were sending it to. So I got this invitation and went, oh, they don't know what they're doing. And I thought, who's a guy would love to get into the White House? Abby Hoffman.
Right.
So we tried to straighten him out because he had this big afro and everything. Slicked his hair down. We tried to get his hair to look normal and put a suit on him. He looked like a hitman for the mafia. I mean, he just looked worse when we got through with him. So we were standing in line, ready to go in.
You and Abby?
Yeah, me and Abby. And security came out and said, I'm sorry, you can't go in. I said, why? I've got an invitation. And he said, you're a security risk. We know who you are. It's Grace Slick. And I went, why? I'm a songwriter. No, you're on the FBI list. And
oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. And we found it out later through the Freedom of Information Act that...
Why were you on the FBI list?
They didn't like our lyrics, I guess. I mean, you know, Hoover was walking around in a tutu going, we don't like their...
Yeah, I mean, what's wrong with that picture, you know?
So, yeah. We just thought it was funny. I mean, because all we were doing is kind of being a little dopey and writing lyrics that were... admittedly, coming down a little bit on let's not have any war and stuff, but that's hardly FBI list material.
But let's face it, your lyrics were quite controversial.
I'm his interpreter.
Yeah, easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's quite hard.
How did you go from a socialite to get into Jefferson?
Well, I wasn't really a socialite, but it was sort of close. It wasn't my parents' decision to send me to Finch. I wanted to go there because it's easy. In other words, you had to have grades and stuff to get into Vassar. And, you know, Barnard and so forth.
So Finch was an easier school to get into?
Yeah.
Really?
I wanted to hang out in New York for a year, but you can't just say to your parents, would you give me $15,000? I really like to just hang out in New York.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to work, so I figured Finch College was a really good way of going to New York, getting it paid for, and not having too much work to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not
So
advising
did you meet members of the band there, or?
No, they're all from California. I didn't meet them till I got back. Went to another college, University of Miami in Florida for a year, the next year. And a girlfriend of mine wrote and said, you got to come back to San Francisco and see what's happening here. I thought, that sounds good. You know, I mean, just...
Do you stay in touch with the members of the band?
Yeah, I do, pretty much. I like them all. I just did an album cover for Jack and Yorma. Best of for them, and I talk to Paul a lot. So we live in different states or different cities.
You miss being a part of the band?
Not really, no. I mean, I like...
But those were great days. Those must have been fun days for you.
Yeah, it was.
With being with Jefferson Airplane.
We actually
You know you got cameras flying around the room here?
Oh, yeah, we got so many cameras. They got it covered.
Are you sure?
You know, it's like little guys wandering in.
You know, we have a piece of footage that we would love to show.
From 1742.
Actually, this is 1732.
Okay.
Yes.
A little earlier than I thought.
Yes.
This is
Watch
great.
this.
Watch right here.
Do you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? Do you know somebody?
love
days.
the outfit.
Yeah,
love
the
the
outfits were
outfit.
great. Oh.
I looked at, I was doing a book signing the other day, somebody brought up a picture, and I thought, oh my God, and it wasn't the 60s, it was the 80s. These hideous shoulder pads with this sticking up hair and a big belt, you know, I mean, it was just awful.
See, that's the thing about being celebrities in show business, is that we can't hide our past.
Yeah.
It always comes out in open books.
Yeah, it's right here.
You know, everybody else can put it in the attic. You know, ours is just an open book.
You should see some of the costumes he wore.
Yeah.
But now, you wrote the song White Rabbit.
Yeah.
And why? But what was...
The publisher never asked me that. He said, good, I'm glad you wrote.
What was it about?
Wow.
It was supposed to be about, what our parents were saying to us while they were holding a bottle of scotch, why do you take these drugs? And the most important period of time for a kid, they say, is 0 to 5. The books they read to me, and most of the people I know, is Alice in Wonderland. She took at least 5 different drugs in that book. Psilocybin, bite of the magic mushroom, hashish out of the hookah. One thing says, eat me, she gets literally high. Wizard of Oz, they fall down a field of opium poppies and suddenly they see the Emerald City. Peter Pan, sprinkle a bunch of white dust on you, suddenly you can fly. So what I learned from that...
You know, I never saw that. I never saw that in those...
Because Alice, all of a sudden, you're so tall.
But
and
now that you put it that way,
yeah, when I was a kid, I said, oh, you have a good chemical and you can go over there.
You say your parents drank a lot?
Well, it's not that they drank a lot, it's that everybody's parents I knew drank alcohol to one extent or the other. Kind of pretty much they'd have their cocktails in the evenings, but that was just normal to have alcohol. And yet it's more powerful than marijuana. It can turn you into a jerk faster than any other drug I know. Half the guys in prison are in there, alcohol is involved. The car accidents and so forth. So that was my actually favorite drug, and it's real powerful.
Is it hard to stay sober?
No, well, yeah, hard to stay. It's not hard to get sober, but it's hard for me to stay anything because I get bored with it. In other words, now
you get bored with what? The drugs?
You name it. Occupation, men. I get tired of drugs, and I want to go straight. I get tired of. I move a lot. I just want to keep doing stuff.
Well, then, I don't know. I probably shouldn't ask this, but what was the attraction back in the '60s for you to take LSD? What was it about it that was exciting for you?
I think partially we were kind of prepared for it. You get Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception, Ram Dass and Timothy Leary having done some experimentation with it at Harvard. Yeah. And it sounded interesting. And I very often make choices in life where that sounds interesting, and there's no argument in the brain like, oh, you really shouldn't do that because maybe... I just go there. It's like, you know.
What do you think about kids?
Sometimes it works and sometimes it's really stupid.
What do you think about kids and drugs today?
Well, the deal is that parents have trouble explaining it because very often they'll lie to them. Various drugs are different. They aren't all the same. I was showed a film in hygiene when I was in the 8th grade of this guy smoking a joint, and then he kills his wife and goes out and rips off his clothes and goes like that, you know. And that doesn't happen with marijuana. It happens with alcohol, but it doesn't happen. So then they know you're lying. Kids know you're lying because they'll try a little marijuana.
And then it doesn't happen.
And what happens is you just get stupid. You know, you sit there and go, that table's funny. So
now, you
I didn't kill anybody. They're lying to me. So you can't lie to them, but you can say that what happens with drugs is it's like a roulette wheel. And each of those little slots that go around, you never know where it's going to land. One of them says, had a really good time. One of them says, called my mother and cried because I was miserable. Another one says, fell asleep early. Another one says, hit somebody with a car. Another one says, golly, I had a great time with it. But another one says, overdose, die. You take that thing, spin that wheel, and you have no choice.
So you would say, all in all, that drugs are a bad thing? It's
hardball entertainment.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you really quickly your take on different people? For example, if I say Jerry Garcia.
He's a guru. He was like, you gather around him even when he was very young. He was like that.
Janis Joplin.
Oh, yeah. I drew a picture of her in this book, and most people look at it for a second and aren't sure whether they like it. Most people see her as that hot mama, bluesy, ballsy kind of, you know, thing. And I saw her as a little kid who might play a joke on you. I mean, little kid having fun. So it's a very naive-looking picture with feathers and stuff, the way she wore. But I didn't see her as a hot mama. I saw her more as a delightful little child.
Did you know her very, very well?
Not real well, but I knew her well enough at the beginning, before we all got record contracts. Once you get a record contract, you send you on the road. She'll be in Miami, we're in the Stones or somewhere.
Right.
You know, you lose track of people.
Here's another name, Jimi Hendrix.
He probably represented, I think, the 60s more than any other single individual. The way he played, the way he looked, his lyrics, his clothes. Don't you think so? Yeah. I'm just sorry I didn't know him better.
Frank Zappa.
Now, you go over to his house, and there are these women walking around with long antique dresses on, and freaky hair, and no shoes, and children, and amplifiers, and he's like smoking, and his thing is just loony, and he's bright, and he can write music, conduct orchestras, and he's the only one I know never took any drugs. I think Gene Simmons didn't either, at all. No drugs.
Didn't need it.
Just nicotine, but no drugs.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know Frank was without drugs.
None.
Jim Morrison.
That's my answer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's very unique, as well as being, I mean, everybody knows he was a good-looking man.
Right.
But he was, if you have a room full of green people, there's one guy that's purple. He's going to be both purple and green at the same time. He has his own universe as well as communicating with you.
Now, go ahead, go ahead.
Should old rock and roll stars be performing still?
Depends upon how much they leap around and try to act like a 25-year-old.
Well, because Mick Jagger's still performing, and he's wonderful.
He was my idol, because there were no women doing hard rock when I started. So I looked to Jagger for, that's how you do when you're on a stage. He's still doing kind of, you know, I can't get no satisfaction leaping around everything. Guy's 55 or 6 or 7 or whatever.
60, isn't he?
No, he's not. He's younger than I am. Everybody's younger than I am.
You are so interesting, and I just really appreciate you being here.
We wish you all the luck on
We
your
have to
new
go to
book.
commercial, but you are so fantastic. Thank you so much for coming here.
The book is called Somebody to Love, a rock and roll memoir. We'll be right back.